Hi, I'm Bobbie. Welcome to Oh Say Can You See? We're here the first, third, and fifth Wednesday of the month at 8 o'clock live, and on every Tuesday reruns at 6. Tonight, we're going to talk about American dynasties, particularly in the political avenue. We have two old names that are, one's in the running, one is speculated to run for our 2016 presidential election, but that's just counting presidential elections. We have so many, you know, cousins, siblings, aunts, uncles in Senate, Congress, governors of our states running our country for us. I want to introduce our panelists, and then we'll get right to the show. To my immediate left is Gary Perrine, and my far left is Stephen Durst. So in our Constitution, it says, "No title of nobility shall be granted by the United States." But we seem to accept these names as people we can trust, like the Roosevelts back in the day. Teddy's reputation certainly helped FDR to become president. I lost my train of thought for a second.
They were very distantly related, though.
Yeah, fifth cousins, yeah. But it was the name.
They were even two different parties. Teddy was a Republican and FDR was a Democrat. But they still, that still was true. I'm sure the voting, back when voting was legitimate, people thought highly of FDR because, at least to some extent, of what his distant cousin did.
Yeah, and it's name brand recognition pretty much. You know, they see the Roosevelt name and they're all about it.
Well, the Roosevelt family was large and old money, going back to Dutch New York.
Even
New Amsterdam.
Yes.
Well, FDR married Teddy's niece.
Yeah. So
they kept it all in the
She's a
family.
third, fifth cousin too.
That would make her like a sixth cousin or something, or seventh cousin, right? If it was his niece, it'd make her, yeah, like a sixth cousin or something. Yeah.
But Teddy was like the, you know, the rock star of politics.
Oh, for sure.
When he was president, he actually could have ran for several terms himself. He chose to follow George Washington's lead and just.
That was my train of thought that I was going at earlier.
There we are. We now are back to Bobbie.
No, I just, you know, George Washington said, "I will not pursue another term," and all presidents followed suit up until FDR, who ran for third and fourth terms.
And Teddy Roosevelt did start a new party and run again in 1912.
That's true.
But he,
what were they called?
The Bull Moose Party.
The Bull Moose Party, yes.
But he felt technically that it was legit because his first term was a takeover, and the second term he actually ran. He could have ran for two elections, but after that they set limitations and no more dynasty in that way.
No more than two terms.
No more third term.
Yeah.
No.
Although I heard, growing up, you used to hear rumblings. Like, I know there were people chatting about the topic when Reagan was president about changing that and perhaps allowing him to run for a third term.
He was so popular. We should have movie stars as presidents more often.
Yeah, but and I'm sure that'll happen every time somebody's wildly popular for whatever reason.
Because he was a movie star. So we have other families as well.
Who?
Well, one that people might not remember, we have the Daly family from Chicago.
Yes.
They ran, father and
The
son,
machine.
total 43 years as mayor of Chicago.
Well, the first mayor Daley, after him was 3 or 4 non-Daley people.
There was a period in the middle, right? Correct. The father ran from, it was in office 55 to 76, and then Richard M. Daley, the son, was in office 1989 to 2010.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long time. And then the brother of Richard M. Daley was White House Chief of Staff.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was a nice dynasty they had going on. These are just some of the snippets I pulled, but they had other little offices that they held, as well as just not being, I think the brother was governor somewhere or something. I can't remember what I read, but that's the one that stuck out the most.
And you know, that's not, you know, that shouldn't be too surprising anyways. If your family business is politics, then, you know, everybody in the periphery is going to, you know, so you want a job? Well, I'm going to get you a job over at the White House or in the Senate, or you can be anything, an aide up to unelected, I mean.
Correct.
Anything you
Appointed is, yeah.
And then, of course, they have influence to get you elected.
Well, the family connections and, and those loyalties are solidified across generations. Voting blocks, too. We have to talk about the Kennedy family.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, right. Name recognition. The Kennedys just like, they took that and ran with it. Every Kennedy.
Yeah, that one was such a long
list. Even the ones that didn't want to run, ran just.
Well, that's what, you know, JFK wasn't the one that they had suited for the Oval Office. They wanted his brother until he
died
was
in the
killed.
war.
Yeah.
Yeah, in those days, our dynastic Zions actually fought in wars.
Right.
Right. Yeah, a lot of Roosevelts died in the war, World War II.
I've read that the
too.
Kennedys held some kind of political office from 1947 to 2011, when Ted Kennedy's son ended it.
Well, there's still Kennedys out there, more peripheral Kennedys.
Right. Yep.
And in a way, Schwarzenegger was a Kennedy, in that he married a Kennedy, or a Shriver.
Those kinds of
Shriver.
Married a Kennedy, but of course, Arnold blew it with the maid. Or she blew it with him, I don't know. But,
and our very, very, very first dynasty, John Adams.
Oh yeah, and his son, John Quincy Adams. No, you know, with men like that, you can see where it's both dynasty and meritocracy, because they were both quite the intellectual heavyweights. Well, and also the physical heavyweights.
Yes. And great-great-grandson of John Adams was Secretary of Navy.
Oh.
So they kept it in the family for quite a while.
Well, some of these dynasties, especially those old money type dynasties, look at public service as a duty.
Yeah.
They're not out.
Because they've got money.
Their position is set, and they devote their lives to the republic. The problem with dynasties, with people like the Bushes and the Clintons, is that it seems like the dynasty becomes more important than the country.
Right. I mean, I'm sure we're here to talk about the positives and negatives of it, but probably more nowadays the negatives. But yeah, you know, keep the Roosevelts and Adams coming. As far as I'm concerned, is that they can keep running the show, and as long as they have that same.
There's a saying in many countries that we don't have an English saying for is. The third generation kills the business, but.
Well, we got Prescott Bush, George Bush, and George W.
Yeah, George W.
You can tell the difference between Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton is that Hillary Clinton really wants it, and Jeb just sort of seems to be going through the motions.
Yeah. Well, he hasn't officially.
No, but he's collected a lot more money than anybody else, using his father's and his brother's connections, at the same time saying, "I'm my own man."
Oh yeah.
He's a hollow man.
No. I feel like they're more puppets. You know, their father might have had some political leanings, but.
Well, the Zion Prescott Bush made a fortune dealing with the Nazis, and he was a senator, and he was closely watched by the U.S. government during the war because of his Nazi activities and sympathies. You know, every great fortune conceals a great crime, and certainly that's true of the Bush family. With the Clinton family, since Bill didn't come from any kind of money, they've sort of had to make their fortune and commit their crimes on the fly, so it's a little bit more out in the open.
Yeah.
But for the most part, their crimes have been nothing like the crimes of most of the big dynastic families. But Hillary has got some pretty dirty connections. For instance, with Monsanto, one of the most horrible corporations on the planet. She's a major stockholder, and she's a consultant to them on their image, and her corporate connections, to me, disqualify her as any kind of populist Democrat.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm glad to see that Bernie Sanders is running. And if we have any supporters of Bernie Sanders out there, it'd be nice to have a call from you today. I know it's your job to say the number, but it's 459-4881.
No, that's good.
It's an insurgency here.
Please call us and let us know. I mean, we're talking about dynasties. We're talking about modern and past dynasties. And if you have something that's really pressing about what's going on, just give us a call. We'll like to help you out with that.
But speaking of Hillary, you know, there are so many people that want a woman president, and mostly women want a woman president.
I wouldn't mind a woman president, but
no,
I don't want one who's a corporate feudalist.
Yeah, but you know, to paraphrase, it's the strength of the character, not the what's in your pants. But you know, would you like Sarah Palin to be president because she's a woman?
No,
you wouldn't. Nobody would want that.
Except her.
And I'm not sure Hillary Clinton is a good person to run for president. There are several more qualified and less
I agree.
I don't know
unscrupulous.
Well, she's certainly qualified in terms of experience and intelligence,
yes,
etc. Maybe even in terms of her character, but she's disqualified. She's compromised, as her husband was compromised before her, in terms of his. You know, what Clinton was able to do was to deliver what was on the wish list of Reagan and Bush, all while using the cover of liberal social rhetoric. So he could be all about women's rights and still be a pig, and he'd still have the support because he sang the right tune. But with his welfare reform, he certainly didn't do women or poor people any favors. And he ran for president as running against NAFTA, and when he became president, he put all of his political capital into passing NAFTA. Now, Hillary Clinton's closely tied to this Trans-Pacific partnership, which is a secret treaty that they're going to be shoving down our throats under the next president.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm suspecting that if you like NAFTA, you're going to love it when you get a load of what's in the TPP in terms of increasing the power of corporations to strike down environmental laws, workers' rights, anything that stands in the way of their exploiting people and resources. And basically, that's what the Clintons stand for, is more corporate hegemony. And that's why we need people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and Martin O'Malley to at least get on that stage and debate them. You know, I suspect that money is going to shove down our throats again, either a Bush or a Clinton or someone in the same stamp as them who will,
well, of course,
continue the same agenda, but at least we'll have some voices there showing us this path leading to our own destruction, so we can't say that we weren't warned, at least.
Well, but my question is Hillary, is she willing to go through another humiliation that she went through 8 years ago?
Well, she brazened that out pretty well. And she brazened out the Lewinsky thing
for
pretty well, too.
Secretary of State position.
Yeah.
And so, was this election part of that deal? Is Obama going to stump for her?
I believe so. He's certainly not going to try to stand in her way. He also is supporting the TPP,
right?
Which I think we should use for TP. Save some trees.
I think we'll go to the first roll-in if that's available. It's Dynasties are awesome.
Dynasties are awesome.
Dynasties are us.
Political dynasties are awesome for the people who are in them. You see, although following in the footsteps of your parents or relatives is not in itself unacceptable, political dynasties create a sense of entitlement, and we exempt their members from the kind of scrutiny that normal people get. And that can lead to the very notion of democracy being compromised. The candidates for our nation's new Minister of Justice are my wife, obviously, my daughter, my son, my brother-in-law, his sister, his cousin, my goddaughter, my godson, and finally, my chihuahua. She is technically dead, by the way, but she is still family. Plus, when the electorate is given a real democratic choice, we're too often seduced by family names, giving members of political dynasties a free pass to take charge. Just imagine if we did that outside of politics.
Doctor, your father's busy. Can you take over?
If you wouldn't trust a brain surgeon's son to open your head up, why trust the kids of presidents with running our countries? To be fair, maybe it's because only they can afford the finest education in the world and learn a bit of financial management. Like the son of Equatorial Guinea's president, Teodorin Obiang, who's had millions of dollars worth of assets seized by the French authorities. And out of all the top academic institutions in the world he could buy his way into,
okay. So we're not the only country, but they have problems there in Africa.
He chose to study at the University of Dynasties in Malibu.
even if you're a well-respected president of the richest nation in the world, there's no guarantee that your offspring will have any of your talents. Maybe I'm being unfair, though. Maybe members of political dynasties like the Obiang family are just like any other family, except with power, wealth, and connections. But I will stop short of calling for political dynasties to be scrapped entirely. If we do allow the relative of a president to automatically take over, that would mean that Cameroon's President Paul Biya would be replaced by his wife, Chantal. And life under President Chantal and her hair would be fabulous. That's it, guys. My name's Ikenna Azuike. I'll see you on the next edition of What's a Biblical?
So So yeah, we have dynasties in other countries as well. In some other countries, it's more obvious and severe, where the next in line gets elected right away. And that's what's up Africa.
We can't get enough of that.
Or countries like Saudi Arabia, which are hereditary monarchies.
Yeah, where that's automatic.
Well, more or less. I'm surprised that there isn't more dynastic violence in some place like Saudi Arabia. It's not a huge royal family, but it seems to be enough money to keep most of them just jet-setting around the world, doing drugs and having sex. They don't really seem interested in running a backward place like Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, they're fine with that.
Well, when they're non-democratic systems, you know, you can just go around, you know, snorting coke and flying around in Europe, and then come home and just tell people what to do.
Somebody's got to do it. It's a dirty job, but it pays well. Bin Laden family. Now there's a dynasty for you. The original Bin Laden, the father of our
Speaking of Saudi Arabia,
was picked by Saudi King Fahd to redesign Mecca for larger crowds, and that's where they got their money, which is billions. And they spread it around the same way. Most of Bin Laden's act much like the Saudi royal family, and they're very close to the Bushes, and they are involved in a lot of consortiums that invest in weapons and oil and probably drugs too. As Bush, as head of the CIA, and vice president. This political intrigues. Another reason for dynasties is that a lot of shady actors connect themselves to that sort of patronage for the protection that it gives them, and this allows networks of mutual blackmail to flourish.
Oh, sure. Just watch House of Cards one time.
Oh, that'd be nice.
You know, that just lets you know exactly what's going on in Washington. It's not really that big of a secret within the network there. They just buy each other, sell each other for secrets and money and contracts and.
Well, we can look at dynasties through history and see that most of them don't last that long because the families wipe themselves out fighting for supremacy. Some of the most stable periods of the Roman Empire were when, like under the Antonines, when an emperor would adopt his chosen successor. So instead of having a blood relative in line, he would coronate who he thought would be his best successor, and that was relative period of stability because it was a meritocracy.
Yeah.
But once they reverted to blood ties, and the power went to the last survivor, families wiped each other out.
Yep. You see that in a lot of early 500 years ago British, War of the Roses type thing. Yeah. But the Chinese kind of keep their dynasties going for a while.
You mean an imperial?
Yeah, 1200s. Yeah.
So it was a very bureaucratic society, a very strong Confucian system of civil service tests.
Yeah.
So the empire was administered by a meritocracy or a technocracy.
Okay.
And so the empire pretty much ran itself as long as the public works were good, as long as the Yangtze didn't overflow and kill 30 million people, as happened in the middle of the 19th century.
Yes.
Making people go, oh no, the emperor's lost the mandate of heaven. It didn't really matter who the emperor was. He was a mere state figurehead. Okay. Sure, he had a lot of power, but no one person could obviously run an empire like that.
Right.
And the Chinese were able to maintain stability by having a very a well-educated and disciplined civil service. The eunuchs basically ran the empire.
Okay.
Nothing else to do.
Yeah, I guess. Well, he who controls the harem controls the emperor.
What about corporate dynasties that rule government?
There you go. Well, what is it? 90% of major corporations in the world are run by families.
That's what they say. And 33% in the U.S. are run by families.
Well, we see it locally with the
Oh, yeah.
DeVosses and the Van Andels.
They take care of the high class in town. The Voss Place and whatnot. Van Andel Arena, giant hotels.
The Myers.
The Myers, maybe not so much politically. Dick DeVos did not succeed
That we
in
know of.
becoming governor of Michigan, despite all of his money. And
Yeah.
That's true. But you know, they were working, or still are, just working under the surface and getting what they want done anyway.
It makes more sense to
Well, the Koch
give
brothers
money
are the
to
kingmakers.
somebody and try to control their decisions rather than to go through the
Bureaucracy, paperwork.
slop of an election to get elected.
Yeah, the Richard DeVos, Richard I, was a major contributor to the Reagan campaigns and to the Bush campaign. And of course, they visited often. George W.H. Bush came to Grand Rapids for his 4th of July victory parade after the first so-called Gulf War.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
Remember
right.
that? That was
Yep.
the first. That was the first time we had tanks rolling down Monroe Avenue. Of course,
Not
now
the last.
with the second Bush's war, and they're giving the military surplus to the police, we have tanks on the streets again,
Yeah.
as we saw on the front page of the Grand Rapids Press on Sunday.
Just what we need.
When you see political dynasties, you usually see the entrenchment of imperial police states. Look at Rome again. I mean, when the Republic fell, and sure, political families were important in Rome under the Republic, but the actual establishment of emperors and emperors passing on the empire to their relatives became a situation of increasing degeneracy. If absolute power corrupts absolutely, then these families were extremely corrupted, and quickly died nasty, poisoning each other, stabbing each other. I love the way Nero kept trying to kill his mother with all these fancy plots till he finally just snapped and bludgeoned her to death in front of him at a party.
That's interesting.
Keep it simple.
Right.
She was the one who put him on the throne too by poisoning her husband's natural son. What was his name? Britannius, Claudius's son. She murdered her husband and her husband's son so that her son Nero could become emperor, and he repaid her by murdering her. But these are what dynasties are made of. I mean, you take normal people and give them that much power, insulate them that much from accountability
too,
and
yeah. responsibility.
Well, I'm not sure what you wanted to reveal for this show, but now in the early 21st century, democratic societies not necessarily the United States, and I expect it to happen, but should look beyond that, should perhaps look towards some people that aren't connected might be the best way to go, rather than people that are entrenched in the system and operate with business as usual. It would be, to have somebody fresh and not part of the system.
Actually, for the people.
And I know it's popular for people to run as an outsider, and they were,
Well, technology.
and they were representatives for like 10 years, and say, I'm an outsider. Like, no, you aren't.
Technologically, with the internet, the people themselves now have the capacity, if they were willing to take on the responsibility of being their own legislature. The way legislatures are now, and how much money is involved in elections and stuff, I could see we'd be better off with a sort of lottery system.
Direct.
Say just everyone has a bachelor's degree, maybe, as a basic qualification, and is willing to go into the lottery system. Picked it's like, all right, well, no, you're a legislator. Because, I mean, at least then they wouldn't be beholden to anybody.
Exactly, and I'm not sure if I caught what you're saying, but we could actually have a direct, democracy where everybody, if you want to make a decision, ask everybody, because like you said, of the internet, we can instantly find out the pros and cons of an issue, and then and what the ramifications are, and cut out a couple $1 billion in the process.
Yeah.
And the fact that people are not pursuing this totally feasible option now is the same part of human nature that makes us bow down to these dynasties. It's like, oh, can't somebody else do it?
Oh,
It's like, oh, I know this guy's name. Oh, he's a Roosevelt. Well, that's good, because he'll take care of it and I won't have to worry about it.
Yeah. However, I think if a direct vote was asked of Americans right now, if they wanted
Gay marriage.
Socialized
Medicine.
healthcare,
Oh, yeah.
then it would happen.
Yes, it would.
It would happen.
Yes.
And gay marriage too. But I think people are crazy for wanting to get married. So
Yeah, dynasties are like certain kinds of industry, like insurance and banking. They become too big to fail.
Yeah.
And so they have way more power than is good for any republic.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like, it's not a dynasty, but when these dynasties are controlling who to pick to put in the offices,
Sure, the plutocracy, the kleptocracy, the rule by the rich.
So here's part of a rundown. The New York Times says if your father, or if you are a son of a governor, you are 6,000 times more likely than the average American male to become a governor. And if you're the son of a senator, you're 8,500 times more likely to become a senator. That's just amazing.
Well, when I was in high school government class, the teacher said, in your lifetime, you will never see a black president, a woman president, or a poor president. Now we have a black president. We may soon have a woman president, but I'm not holding my breath for a poor president.
No.
I would like to throw my hat in the ring right now.
I am running to be president of the poor.
The first thing you have to do is become rich so that you can afford to run, and so then it's all over.
Or have lots of big donors.
Right.
Well, the fun story of Abraham Lincoln is not going to happen.
Well, Abraham Lincoln married into money and made himself a tidy fortune as a corporate lawyer for the railroads.
Yep.
Lanky lawyer.
Now, Bill Clinton came from relative poverty too, but by the time he ran for president, he wasn't poor.
No.
Of course, since he ran for president, he's made quite a considerable amount of money.
And his wife, and helped his wife become senator and
let's not kid ourselves, that's why people want to run for president. It doesn't make sense to run for president for any other reason but for money.
Well, the salary isn't that good, but the
No.
perks are good, and
No,
once
no,
you get
that's-
out,
Yeah, but saying the obvious, the salary is not good.
well, it's good enough for me.
The
Ego, yeah, that's a good reason.
No. You can manipulate the system, as we know, to garner extra money in the back room. It's not for the, what is it, 250,000? What is it?
Oh, it's
something
more like
like that.
400,000.
Is it 400
They raised
now?
it, right. Because they thought, they didn't like the absurdity of somebody spending $1 billion to actually get a job that pays $200,000.
Right, right.
It looks bad. It looks
Well, they
bad.
weren't spending their own money. It's like people making movies. You don't spend your own money on a movie.
All right, we have a caller. Rick, do you have a
Rick.
question or comment for us?
Hello?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, it's a good topic. I tend to agree with the premise, especially since, do we really want another Clinton? Although I think Bill Clinton was a pretty good president considering all the obstacles he had to face from the other party, as Obama is now doing. And
How about George Clinton?
I'd vote for George Clinton.
Sorry, go ahead.
actually, there was a DeWitt Clinton. I think that was a vice president or a losing candidate way back in the 1800s. But anyway, as far as dynasties per se, it seems like a bad thing to have in a supposedly democratic country. However, I'd have to say, I think you have to almost look at it on a case-by-case basis. That the two Adams presidents, in my opinion, were not too impressive. The William Henry Harrison and I believe his grandson or great-grandson Benjamin Harrison, they were pretty lackluster. In all fairness, William Henry Harrison was only in office about a month, and
Well, he got sick at the inauguration and died 40 days later.
well, he gave his inauguration speech, which lasted about 2 hours, and didn't even wear a top coat or a hat, for crying out loud. But anyway, and then we had the two Roosevelts, who, although from different parties, I think were pretty good presidents. I thought the two Bushes were abysmal presidents, both of them. A lot of people think George H.W. was a good president only because they're comparing him to George W. Now, Jeb, and I hate to say this, but if you compare Jeb to the other clowns that are running for president of the Republican Party, he looks absolutely statesmanlike. I mean, when you got Ted Cruz and Rand Paul and some of these other idiots,
Obnoxious.
In fact, I think it was David Letterman jokingly said, and there could be some truth to it, this whole thing is a plot to make Jeb Bush look good by comparison
They
in
do
the party.
that.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Hillary, I think, it may be time for a woman president, but please, not her. Let's have someone like Elizabeth Warren or even Kristen Gillibrand, who admittedly doesn't have the experience really. But did you hear that Bernie Sanders is probably going to officially announce?
Yes, we mentioned that.
Yeah.
What do you think of Bernie?
I must have missed that. Now, I'd love to see Bernie get in there, but he's got a couple of things working against him.
He's extremely liberal.
Well, he's an avowed. He doesn't even deny it that he's a democratic socialist, which I think is a good thing, and maybe the three of you do, but most people have been conditioned to think that a socialist is the same as a communist, and that's bad.
Yeah, that's almost like saying you're an atheist.
We'll have gulags all over the place, But the other thing I think is his age, I mean, some people think Hillary's too old or Biden is too old. I think Bernie is older than both of them. But maybe his main focus will be to force Hillary to move even further to the left, because truth be known, I personally don't honestly think there's that much difference overall between Jeb or Hillary. I think if those were the two candidates, I don't think it would much matter who gets in, do you?
It doesn't matter anyways, in my opinion, obviously. First of all, I don't think the age of the candidate has anything to do with their abilities. I'm sure you're talking about the perception of...
Well, we're so conscious of people's image, that's all I'm saying. It shouldn't be important, but it is, unfortunately.
But I think we're putting too much importance on the presidency itself. You know, if you want, I think if you want to affect some kind of change in your immediate life, then you should focus on local elections.
Yeah, good luck with that. I mean, it looks like we're going to have our first woman mayor in Grand Rapids because she doesn't have, Rosalind Bliss, who's running, doesn't have any credible opposition, really, so.
Who?
Her name is Rosalind Bliss. She's currently a secretary.
Rosalind Bliss.
Running for mayor.
Well, first of all, two things. Grand Rapids system has a weak mayor.
I realize that.
And so it doesn't, they don't have much power as far as making decisions. It's the city manager. And secondly, I am running for mayor myself, so.
What's your name?
You have a viable alternative to Rosalind Bliss.
What is your name, sir?
Gary.
Perrine.
Perrine. Oh yeah.
Last name?
Perrine. There it is. Are you watching the TV?
Okay, I see now. Oh, I didn't see your name mentioned in the article I read in the paper, though.
Oh, it's not official yet.
Oh, I guess you just made the announcement.
Oh no, it's not official at all.
You're not the guy that's against fluoride, are you?
No, I mean,
Okay. There's one
not.
fellow.
You're not for it?
I have no opinions.
I want to shove it down every baby's throat.
No,
Honking blocks of it.
no, I'm for Grand Rapids, not against anybody. Well,
Oh my God.
Well, I think they'd all say that. But anyway, I was just going to say, I don't think it's a bad thing of dynasties per se. I think it depends on the individuals. You know, the Kennedys, of course, had their personal foibles, but basically they were good public servants, I think, and they pretty much advanced the progressive agenda. You know, so can't really knock that. So.
But again, it's a great fortune concealing a great crime.
You're right.
And the old joke at it. What?
It's hard to amass a big personal fortune if without doing something illegal. In the case of the Kennedys, it was corn liquor. In the case of Rockefellers, it was oil monopolies, and the Bushes were heavily involved in the oil industry. Yeah, it's true. It's very hard. Ross Perot, I think, amassed his fortune by having Medicare contracts with the government. So it's pretty hard to amass great personal wealth without doing something immoral or illegal or both. I agree with that.
And that seems to be what's the necessary condition for the creation of a dynasty. As I was saying, the Clintons didn't have it to begin with, so they've sort of had to amass it in real time as they go.
Right,
but they're doing it.
And in all fairness, you know, it's Bill and then it's Hillary. That's hardly a dynasty. I mean, it's one person.
True.
Now his spouse is running. It's nowhere near comparable to the Bushes, the Kennedys, or the Rockefellers.
Not at all.
So we'll see.
Yeah, I guess we'll never see a Roger Clinton presidency. Oh, he died, didn't he?
I would like to see Sanders Warren or Warren Sanders, but I don't think it's going to happen.
How do you like Martin O'Malley?
I don't know much about him.
Former governor of Maryland.
I knew that.
Governed as a centrist, but he says he's running in the same leftist track as Elizabeth Warren.
He's comparable to Elizabeth, you said?
Is he comparable? It's hard to tell. He's got some good credentials. He's a PhD in law from a good Catholic university. I mean, a couple terms as governor. He was mayor of Baltimore. Being a mayor of a big city, I would think would be good. I wouldn't mind seeing Cory Booker run.
Yeah, I think he'd be a good candidate. But I just think that Hillary she thinks it's her turn, and it probably is. You know, I mean, people want to see a woman president, especially women. And I think secretly they'd never admit it. I think if she gets the nomination, I think a lot of Republican women, when they get in the polling place, they'd never admit it, but they're going to pull the lever, metaphorically.
I think so.
I don't see her winning.
There are a lot of women who don't like Hillary.
I'm not a fan.
No. But I
let's
think,
have some women callers call in and tell us what they think.
well, yes, but
The phone number is 616-459-4881.
And the time is?
okay, you're telling me to get off.
We got
Right?
15 minutes.
Okay,
No,
thank-
Rick, it was
Listen,
so good to hear from you again.
Yeah, it's a good show, and I'll be listening.
Thanks.
Thanks,
you.
Rick. Any more roll?
Yeah, we have another roll-in. This is a Bush versus Clinton roll-in.
All right.
From CNN.
Bottom of the hour now, I'm Brianna Keeler. Let's ask this question. Do Americans prefer political dynasties? The stars are already aligning for Hillary Clinton and Jeb Bush to run for president in 2016. Hillary Clinton, in fact, shows every sign of planning a White House run. Will Jeb Bush take the plunge, though? That's a big question right now. Here's what his brother, the former president, says.
I think it's 50-50. Look, he and I are very close. On the other hand, he's not here knocking on my door, agonizing about the decision.
All right, so if it's 50-50, I mean, I think that's pretty good. If you end up with a bunch of people lining up behind you, I think it tilts more than 50-50. I want to talk about all of this and the potential for another Bush versus Clinton matchup with CNN political commentators S.E.E. Cupp and Van Jones. Van, I mean, first off, if you've had a Bush or a Clinton on every presidential ballot from 1980 to 2004, what does it say about this country if we turn back to the same two families again to be our White House picks?
Well, I think it says that we've got very limited imagination in the country. I would say, though, that we're not scared of Bush. I mean, if we get a chance to say Clinton economy versus Bush economy over and over and over again, that's not a bad thing for Democrats. So, but I do think that there are probably a few other last names in American politics that should have a shot.
What do you think, S.E.E.?
Look, Hillary Clinton and Jeb Bush have similar problems in that they might be fine leaders and accomplished candidates, but their parties have changed so much underneath them since the last time either of them held elected office. They are really going to have to contort to meet the demands of the new Republican and Democratic Party. And we've already seen Hillary Clinton struggle to do that, struggle to act like a progressive. And Jeb Bush has actually struggled to try and reach, far-right conservatives on issues like immigration. So they're really going to have to figure out how to play to the far sides of their parties and do that in a pretty limited period of time, especially for Jeb Bush, who's been out of the spotlight for so long.
What do you think about that, Van? I mean, we heard Hillary Clinton in a way recently. She said, and her team saying that she essentially misspoke, or her supporters saying that she misspoke when she said businesses don't create jobs, and then that she meant basically tax cuts for businesses don't create jobs. She had to kind of correct herself. You saw her swinging from one side to the other. I mean, is that the truth, that she does struggle to kind of really speak in the vernacular of her party?
Well, I think that's obvious. I mean, I think it's really true. The Democratic Party has moved more to the left than it was during the 1990s. The Republican Party has moved more to the right than it was in the 1990s. I think S.E.E. Cupp is exactly right on that point. The challenge I think that Hillary Clinton is going to have is that for a whole bunch of people who are the base voters for our party in the Democratic Party, African Americans, Latinos, younger voters, they don't know her. I mean, they know who she is. They think well of her. They think well of her husband. But she's not somebody that walks into a room and lights the place on fire the way that Bill Clinton did, the way that Obama does. And so, certainly Obama at his height. That means she's going to have to really figure out how to connect. And you're going to see her struggling to connect with this new party. This is a party that is really tired of Wall Street getting its way, really tired of income inequality, really tired on some of these economic issues. And that's not been her forte.
Yeah,
no,
she
that's
needs
true.
to do.
Let me just respond to Van, because he's absolutely right. But the advantage that Hillary has, because Jeb has the same problem too. If you go into a room full of, say, Ted Cruz supporters, they will groan at the mention of Jeb Bush. The difference, the advantage that Hillary has is progressives like Van, who might not think Hillary is the ideal candidate, will still go out and vote for her. But Ted Cruz conservatives will stay home if Jeb Bush is the nominee, and if the primary process and general election that gets him there completely ignores them. So there's an advantage on the left in that the Democrats, I think, are more coalesced around Hillary, even if they find problems with her, than conservatives are around Jeb Bush.
So you think it's harder for Jeb Bush than it is for Hillary Clinton to push through?
Well, I don't want to say it this way, but certain conservatives are a little more principled when it comes to their vote than I think some of the progressives will be when it comes to 2016 and Hillary.
Well, I'll tell you this: if Bush is in fact the nominee, our base is going to be fired up in a way that you can't believe. So that it's interesting. These two things actually work against each other. Hillary Clinton will get some support from progressives, and it'll get warmer as we go. But if a Bush is on the ticket, you're going to see people going nuts trying to stop another Bush from getting in. We didn't like the last two Bushes. So if you have a Clinton and a Bush, you have more enthusiasm from Democrats, possibly less from Republicans.
Yeah, I bet. And we'll see. We'll see if what's old is new again and how that plays. S.E. Cup, Van Jones, thanks to both of you.
At it again. We have Martha on the line. Do you have a question or comment for us? Martha?
Can you hear me? Yeah. Yes. Oh, all right, great. Yeah, it was really interesting. A couple of things I wanted to comment on was that we talked about it's like we talked about how much money is involved in running a campaign. And I think that that's something that there was something pretty interesting that happened the first time Obama ran. He basically wanted to introduce himself because people didn't really know as much about him on the street. But he did manage to get a whole lot of money together even before he changed over to doing the campaign, no limit thing. So I think that was really educational to us. This was the first time that we really had the computer and the websites and marketing like that, and more communication with everyday voters because of the internet is something that really is still taking off. So there's hopefully a bright spot. I'm not about the woman president, but I think it would be really awesome for the Democratic Party if they would have a lively debate instead of having Hillary as a foregone conclusion. I'd love to see a woman debate Hillary, and Elizabeth Warren would be awesome. So that's the kind of thing I'd like to see.
That'd be cool.
And that's about all I got.
Oh, well, thank you so much for calling, Martha.
Yep.
So that one of the things they said in the video was, are people gonna, if Jeb Bush is running, are people gonna run out and vote because they definitely don't want to have a Bush?
Oh, well, I didn't think that. I think if Jeb ran, the Republicans would run out and support.
You think it'll be
heavily.
The opposite? That there'll be so many people that want to have another Bush that.
I'd say if there's a Jeb Bush, Hillary Clinton ticket or matchup, Jeb wins.
Yeah.
Jeb wins.
That's scary.
Well, these dynasties already have a history of doing favors for people, and so political elites are putting their careers on the line and their loyalty to these particular brand names.
Oh, yeah.
So they are foisting these two contenders off on the parties. I think the point that one of those talking heads was making was that she said that the Republicans are more principled. Well, let's say they're more refractory, and the Democrats might be more pragmatic, and they'll go, if we're stuck with Hillary, we're definitely going to vote for Hillary versus Jeb Bush. Right. But the people who are for Rand Paul or for Ted Cruz are not going to vote for Jeb Bush unless they're on, say, somewhat more cool-headed than most of those type of Tea Party fanatics.
Well, I'm not sure.
The people who are supporting Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, they're not fanatics. They're rational actors, and they'll go, okay, if it comes down to Hillary versus Bush, I'm going to hold my nose and vote for Hillary, even though I realize that she's going to continue the type of corporate hegemony that we've been seeing, we saw under her husband.
But he's a Bush. I mean, that's their thing.
That's what
they do.
There is maybe 10 to 15% of the population who had their heads so in the sand that they still think George W. Bush somehow did a good thing by invading Iraq, et cetera, but it's left a bad taste in almost everybody's mouth by now.
Except Dick Cheney's.
Well, Dick Cheney is a type of insider that I'm saying. They have these loyalties to these dynasties, and they will support it with their money and with their internal dirty tricks and things like that. But the great so-called silent majority is not going to be silent. And they're going to fracture off. They're going to vote for the Tea Party type candidates that might be like in the taxpayer party and things like that.
Right.
Well, they're just going to stay home.
I'm not saying that. Well, my point was that Halliburton and Dick Cheney, all those people benefited from it, from the Bushes being in office for both of the presidents.
My point too, those are the super electors, but the vast number of average voters are not that invested in those
I want to thank everybody
but
for watching the show tonight. Our two callers, Martha and Rick, thank you very much. We're here the 1st, 3rd, and 5th Wednesday of the month at 8 p.m. and reruns are at 6 p.m. every Tuesday. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you for asking me. It's been fun.
Closing comments?
Well, the dynasties exist, yes. The truth of the matter, in my opinion, the presidency isn't the power in America these days. It is the corporations that.
Yeah.
Those dynasties are the ones that we should actually be wary of.
Presidents are the hand puppets. Those dynasties are dinosaurs.
And if you recognize
the name,
too big to fail
and too big to succeed.
If you recognize the
too
name,
big to laugh.
don't vote for them. It's my motto.
Well, like the Rockefellers, the older generations never ran for any political, but they definitely used their power to get what they wanted.
Well, then there was Nelson Rockefeller. Became vice president on Ford. Ford sent the first